Greetings, greetings, greetings. CME, my kings and my queens. Happy awakening. So today what we're going to speak about is a bit of a sensitive subject and one that a lot of men, specifically woken men, and the women that participate in this will object or will find all the reason in the world to say that I'm wrong, but I'm not wrong. I don't do videos unless I'm actually correct. If you don't know, a lot of persons would talk about the different gifts, the different talents that have been given to them from the Most High, the Creator, Sonini, Nanini. Of course, we have some lucid dreamers that still refer to the Creator as Yahweh, Yeshua, Hahaya, and all those idol name. But we know that his true name have to have his roots in the Holy Land. And the only way for you to know his true name is to know where the true Holy Land is. And we know that must be what modern society called Africa, but we call it Al-Kibulan. That is the Holy Land. That is the land that has all the natural resources. That is a land that is self-sustaining. That is a land that is being plummeted, that's being abused, that the entire earth have to depend on to maintain their modern civilization. That is the land that is in the center of the earth as we know it. Because that's a different conversation about the center of the earth, how larger earth is, but we're not going to get into that today, another time. So the topic that I want to discuss, and this is for only what modern society would call Black people. Sometimes I use this terminology just to make the conversation flow and to not be too caught up in breaking down the terminology, because in this awakening, we are still fragmenting, we're still separated because we're all fighting or arguing or discussing what is the true terminology, what the truth is. But the first step was that we've woken up, and that's beautiful in itself. The next step is that whichever road we all take, we're still going to end up on the same road, and each different road have bits of truth that we're going to all bring together on that one road. Anyway, so in this awakening, I am seeing a lot of abuse of men abusing women in a different way. So they wake up and they're like, okay, or women are queen, they're supposed to be elevated, they're supposed to be taken care of, they're supposed to be treated this way and this and that and all these wonderful things, which is true. But in that same breath, they're doing the same thing as the oppressors, the colonizers have done, where they say, oh, they're humans too, they deserve equal rights and all of these things, but yes, they still don't give it to us. In this awakening, they have done the same thing, men. And in this awakening, the women have done the same thing they always do, which is comply to what these men say, and have complied even more, just because they're like, okay, it's the awakening, and if the awakened brothers are saying this is how it's supposed to go, then yes, it must be true. And the topic of discussion is polygamy. Yes, polygamy. And I'm just going to say it from the start so you know exactly where this is heading. So if you don't want to listen any longer, you can make that decision early on. May the grace of Sonina Nini, the Creator, who is always present, the Creator who is always self-sustaining, be with you. So, polygamy is not of us. That's the first thing. And that's one of the basic things that we should have awoken to. that polygamy is not of us. This old polygamy mindset that our men have and that our women have adopted is of the colonizers. It's an animalistic approach to life. And a lot of people are going to say that, but it's in our African culture for centuries. Of course it is. We weren't colonized just 500 years ago. We were colonized way before then. We may have been colonized up to 6,000 years ago, but it doesn't matter how far in our African ancestry or culture polygamy is being practiced. It is not of us. In this awakening, at the end of the awakening, we're going to come to realize that a lot of things that we wake up and accept is not true or not righteous or wasn't supposed to be. So there is an article that will talk about, and if I can find it, I will show it on the screen here, that explain the origin of polygamy in our African culture. For every one woman that was taken into slavery, 10 men were taken into slavery, which end up with a shortage of men in our community. And being the smart people we were, we had a way to fix that. Men started marrying multiple wives to ensure that all women were taken care of, all women had a husband, and we had no issue doing it. It was a solution to fix an issue. But over time, and with the colonizers in our land colonizing us, it became the norm, right? So they stole what was ours and give us what was theirs, which is, you'll hear for instance, the Christian religion or so-called modern civilization or the West will say that you can only marry one person. We're not dogs. We're not animals that's just randomly just, oh, okay, we're going to procreate. Let's just find female and mate with. That's not us. That's savage behavior. That's the European behavior who come from these lower beings, like the dogs, the cats and whatever, and they meet and then they get the female pregnant and that is it. That's not what we are. We're higher thinking beings. We're higher functioning beings. We have wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. We don't function as the animals do in every aspect. So, if we have a shortage of men, it is okay to do it, to fix an issue for a time. But ultimately, the goal is not to have a man having 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 women, wives, or whatever. And sisters need to understand this so they don't subject themselves to something that is not the correct way of living. With that said, that is where this polygamy came rooted into our ancient culture. A lot of persons are going to say, but the Bible talk about Jacob having 2 wives and Abraham did have a second wife. Don't forget the situation that led to these multiple wives of these righteous men. And also, don't forget the Bible have removed all stories or outline that would elevate women. They only have a few in there, and those few only reflect little light on the role of the woman in our culture. We had complete equality. There wasn't, oh, you're a woman, so this, you're a man, so this. We have separate roles, but they're all equal. And male or female weren't looked at less than the other in any aspect. and none were seen superior to the other, and none were seen as leading more than the other. We were only seen as doing the role that we're supposed to do, that we were created for spiritually, that we were created for physically. Remember, the spirit in me, a female, and the spirit in a male is not different. We may have different physiological, biological, and physiological makeup, but our spirit are no different, and our spirit is far superior and more important than the physical. Don't forget that. With that said, there are still guidelines how we function in the physical. So no one can use this to say, oh, this gave a door to the agenda of all these other alphabet groups. Now, you have men having multiple women. Let's look at it from a spiritual standpoint. And this is also true for physical as well. Now, when two people lay together, they exchange spirits, they exchange energy, they exchange essence, they exchange all they are, and they are creating a whole. So a man and a woman would be opposite sides of the same thing. Just like how you have left and you have right, you have up, you have down. You have light, you have darkness. You have righteousness, you have unrighteousness. They're opposite side of the same thing. It is the same thing with a man and a woman when they come together as one. And the goal is always to have balance. It's never to have imbalance. So spiritually, they come together as one, right? And one in the sense that it's equal opposing side that come together to create that balance. And they exchange energy, they exchange their force, they exchange their essence, they exchange their frequency. Now, if a man does that with a second woman, then there's no longer balance. You have unbalance and you have inequality spiritually. And also you have an improper transfer of these energy, these essence, these forces. Because he is also going to do the same thing with the second woman. And then he's going to go back to the first woman and exchange what he received from that second wife to the first wife. So now indirectly, the two women are exchanging their energies, their essence, their spirit. They're exchanging everything spiritually, which is an abomination. Two women should never exchange that. And it happens indirectly. For women, on the physical side, I spoke about the spiritual. On the physical side, you have women in their reproductive organ, they have bacteria in there. And we're the same people, we come from one, but our bacteria is still slightly different. It's kind of like your fingerprint or the DNA that you can use to know that this is you. Our arrangement of our bacteria are different. Now, you have this thing called bacterial vaginosis. And people get that. Women get that when a man sleeps with another woman and exchange her bacteria with her. And it doesn't mean he didn't clean himself after. It didn't mean he didn't shower, clean himself properly. But just as though there's a spiritual exchange of energy and essence and all of that, it's the same thing. There is a physical exchange of the bacteria in one man with the man. So he gets her bacteria, she does get his. And these are healthy bacteria that must exist there to keep homeostasis within the in the reproductive organ, to keep balance. But if he sleeps with 2 or more women, then he's exchanging all that bacteria with these women as well, right? So spiritually and physically, and supported by science, this should not be occurring. I should not be exchanging my reproductive bacteria with another woman and vice versa. And that only occurs when a man is being shared between 2 women. And another thing, spiritually proven, physically proven that it's wrong. Remember, the Creator makes no mistake. The Creator put these things in place to ensure there are consequences for actions that he deem unrighteous. If that wasn't the case, there wouldn't have been an effect in terms of the exchange of bacteria. I should not be receiving another woman's bacteria, which is why the man that I sleep with should not be sleeping with another woman to exchange that bacteria. So now let's speak about the social construct of these sister wives and these polygamous relationship. Regardless of how awakened we are, regardless of how much we agree with everything, there is still difference of opinion. There's still different thought processes. And if you're with a man and there's another woman in the picture, when there's opposing views on the woman's side, then guess what? He's gonna have to choose one. And guess what? That's gonna create conflict. That's one. Also, having the women in the same house it's in the same house or the same compound. It doesn't have to be the physical house. It can be on the same property, right? Once they're interacting, unless you have a woman that is on one end of your property and the other woman is on the other end, they have no interaction or whatever, which means whatever kids they share over there, the kids aren't interacting. I'm talking about from an energy, an essence, a spiritual, and a physical standpoint. Once they are coexisting together, then guess what happens? The 2 women will end up on the same monthly cycle. So some people say, but when I'm on my cycle and I can't do these things because I'm unclean, then that's what the second wife is there for, to help with the kids and all of that. Guess what? You're both going to have pretty much the same cycle. Unless you live yonder and she live wherever, and you live here, and he's jumping between the 2 houses, you're going to end up on the same cycle. So that doesn't solve for that issue. Now, let's say you keep the 2 women separate, 2 separate directions. Guess what, that affects the children, because then what? You're not coming home every night to your children. You have to split your time between one family there and one family here. And your children do not get that consistent daddy comes home in the evening and we're a family in the evening, every evening, this is family time. That routine, that daily routine is broken, and that affects the development of the children. It's very much similar, and it's actually exactly like when a couple come together, they have children, and then they decide to divorce, and the children is being co-parent. I mean, it's the best of a bad situation. It's better you both co-parents for the best of the children, but it's not the ideal situation. And there will be effects, regardless of how great you and your ex co-parent. It's not ideal, and it still has negative effect. The ideal situation is that the father and mother live together in the house with the children and raise them up. So the fact that you say, okay, to fix for that's women being on the same cycle because they're in the same house or the same compound and they're interacting, I'm going to have them separate and apart. You're going to end up with children being affected because their father is not in the same house with them all the time. So again, you end up with something that is flawed, something that is not ideal, something that is not perfect, something that is not pure. Either way you take it. I tell you, the Creator makes no mistake. He ensures that no matter how you turn, there's going to be a downside. There's going to be a negative impact, a negative consequence to whatever action we portray. And that's what we are seeing here. Now, I said all this to show the sisters and the brothers who is not afraid to look at themselves, that this polygamy thing that we're upholding or that we're adapting is not something righteous. It's not something righteous. It destroys us. It's not the perfect or the ideal situation. Now, in this awakening, yes, there probably is a shortage of men that are awoken and living the right way. And so women being awoken might not be able to, but it's better not to even engage or have a partner and just keep on your journey until you find someone that can be your own. And this goes both ways. I'm only saying this because even though the woman is not accepted as being able to have two men, we've accepted that the man can have two women in this awakening, which is just a repackaging of what men have been doing by cheating on their wives, having multiple women, not committing to a woman. It's just a repackaging to a pretty package to make it look good. It's not different. You haven't awoken and done anything different or done anything good when you say, okay, I'm going to get me two wives. And every man is wearing this as a badge of honor. And the women turn around and say, yeah, we're happy with this. This is perfect. This is ideal. I get to rest. I get to break. I don't have to do all of these things. Sister, your break and your rest comes into your mother and your sisters and your mother-in-law and your sister-in-law. You don't have to have a sister wife to get the break and the rest that you need. What you need to do is build the community, build the family, and building a community is building the family. Make amends with your family, open your family's eye. We don't want to put in the work to create the ideal family, which will then create the ideal community situation. We want to take the easy route out, right? Your work, your life work, your journey. Your next step should be, okay, I'm awoken. Me and my husband is awoken. Me and my wife is awoken. Now the next step is we need to awaken our family. It's going to be a difficult path because our family is still asleep and it's going to be a problem. And then get us back to the original state of a family unit where the mother-in-law, the mother, the sisters, when any of the wives in that family feel like, oh, I need a break, or they're on their cycle or whatever you may want to call it is going on and she's not available to do what you need, her sisters would take up the slack, her mother would take up the slack, there's the aunts to take up the slack, and so forth. And don't forget, the men can also take up the slack. Okay, so but that's a different conversation. So I said all of that to say that the polygamy relationship, just because, hey, it's to give each wife a chance to, when they're on their cycle or when they don't feel well or sick, that's not the fix for it. A man will have to explain, what is the benefit of you having two wives? I don't see it as yet, because going that route just create peer problems. And you realize I didn't talk about, oh, this make the kids very happy, this create a balanced environment for the kid. I could get in all of that, but I'm just going to stick with the on the nose thing that goes wrong when you have these polygamy relationship, right? And the truth of it, we're not going to see the full backlash of it until later on. But it does fix for if there's a shortage of men. So we would have done that in our history if there's a shortage of men. The Bible does say if your brother dies childless, you do take on his wife and help raise up seed for your brother. And if a woman is barren, she goes search for a wife for herself, which means her husband will then procreate with her so that she can gain children. Those are the two reasons that we did that for. Jacob ended up with his two wives because of a deception done onto him. He only wanted one. And then he ended up with the additional two because there was strife between the two that he had. And so he ended up with the two maids. That's how he ended up with four. This was the women doing that stuff. You see, when a woman say, this is what I want, it's different from when a man say, this is what I want. Because the man is only doing it for lust. He's just doing it because, oh, he want more than one wife. It's greed. It's a fleshy desire that they're doing it for. They're not doing it to improve nothing in our community or in our awakening. It's still a demonic desire in them that they're doing it for. And they try to cover it by saying, oh, it's because I'm trying to fix our community. You can fix our community and have multiple wives without being sexually active with that wife. You can marry 10 wives to give them the covering of a man, to give them that security, but you don't have to sleep with them for them to be your wife. But they wouldn't want to have that conversation, right? And Dr. Umar said something interesting. If a man wants to have more than one wife, then he needs to take up one of the undesirable ones. And that will be a beautiful thing to see happen. And I bet you these men is going to have a problem with it. They're not going to take up a wife with, oh, she's like 50 or 60, but she needs a husband too, so take up her. And her kids need a father too. No, that's not what they want to do. To show you the bias and the lies covered in righteousness. We're just doing this old religious deception thing all over again in this awakening. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to show up our unrighteousness in our righteousness. So that's my bit on that topic right there. I'll do a second one if you want me to, where I probably go more in depth, because I know a lot of persons are going to come with their one-sided excuse or questions, but I'm here for it. Thank you again for joining me. Have yourself a great day, and I look forward to your views on this.